This is the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. It is Thursday, the 2nd of November 2017, the year being. You also may be tuned to this broadcast on Sunday, the 5th of November 2017. VORW Radio International is a light entertainment program featuring a mixture of my talk and commentary as well as listener-requested music. Well, it's been another week. We're into November now. Happy November. Welcome one and all. The VORW International service lives on into November. And I hope this last week was a fine one for you. I hope if you celebrated it, Halloween was a fine one for you. Hope if you dressed up in a costume, hope it went over all right. If you went to a party, hope it was enjoyable. No matter how you spent the holidays, for instance, I stand around the airwaves and listen for pirate stations like I mentioned last week, and it went over fine. I mean, I caught a few pirate stations. I played some good music, a few songs I'd never heard before, and it was enjoyable. It was just fun. So I hope your Halloween was a pleasant one, and I hope this week in general has been a fine one for you. For me, I mean, if you've been listening long enough, you know it's been a rough go, but made the most of it as I could, and that's where that stands. Well, anyway, on to the broadcast. I was thinking about what to talk about today, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks, because this is a conversation that I knew in due time I was going to have, but it was one, if I say I was dreading it, I think that's a bit melodramatic, and that's an exaggeration. I'm not really dreading it. Something I didn't look forward to, because it's a rather confusing thing. No way else to put it. Now, let me get this off the bat immediately. If you are an online listener, and I know a lot of people listen to this program online, so if you tune in on SoundCloud, right? If you listen on TuneIn Radio, you listen on the TuneIn app, if you listen to the WBCQ TuneIn stream, WRMI TuneIn stream, or anything online, don't worry, this only concerns the individuals who listen on shortwave radio, okay? So if you listen to this broadcast online, this is a non-issue. But I know that there's a sizable listening audience that tunes in on the shortwave frequencies, and this concerns them most of all. Now, I can get wrapped up in the technicalities of this all day. This is something that I could probably spend the entire show trying to explain, and then it wouldn't be fun. It'd be like a boring lesson of me babbling on about time zones and this and that, and I want to leave some good room for some music and some fun stuff, so I'm going to keep this rather short in terms of the explanations. In short, I mean, you listen to these broadcasts on the radio, mostly based off of your local time. You know, alright, it's 8 p.m. Eastern, right? I'm going to tune in to 7490 now, and that's when I hear the broadcast. You just listen based off of your local time. A lot of these broadcasts in the world of shortwave radio schedule their broadcasts not by local time, but by something called UTC, which is actually about 5 hours ahead of Eastern time. And this is where the technicalities just pour in, right? I could go on explaining, well, what is UTC? Why do they use it? How do they use it? How did it come about? Etc., etc. But the most important thing to know, in the world of shortwave broadcasting, a lot of stations officially schedule their transmissions via UTC time and not local time. Now, I get that can be confusing. You might have a little bit of a knowledge of UTC time, but if I asked you to convert 7 p.m. Central to UTC, I mean, some people would know, but would everyone? If that's something that's common knowledge, I wouldn't wager that as so. And everything was timed up just fine, right? All the broadcasts were coordinated out fine. But then here in the United States we have a little something called daylight saving time. Everyone says it's daylight savings time, but it's actually daylight saving time. It doesn't matter. It's a mere technicality. When daylight saving time happens, though, all the times in the U.S. get bumped back an hour. And that messes things up when UTC time doesn't change. I know it's complicated. I know my explanation of it is very confusing. This is where things stand. A lot of our shortwave transmissions have been bumped back an hour. And what's most important is the updated schedule, so I'll give it to you right now. The morning transmission, which is tentative, on 5850 kHz every Thursday at 6 a.m. is now at 5 a.m. Eastern. So 5850, originally at 6 a.m. Eastern, is now at 5 a.m. Eastern. Our transmission on 11580 kHz up the East Coast, scheduled at 4 p.m. Eastern, is now at 3 p.m. Eastern. Our shortwave broadcast at 6 p.m. Eastern to South America will remain at 6 p.m. Eastern, so that one doesn't change. And that also has a tune-in stream that goes along with it. So if you caught the earlier tune-in stream, that's at the same time. That's not changing. The broadcast at 6 p.m. Eastern stays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that's widely audible throughout North America as well. The broadcast to the west coast of North America at 8 p.m. is now to 7 p.m. Eastern. And this I know will directly affect some listeners, because I know there's folks in California who do tune into this one. This might be a little iffy, I know, but that's where it stands. 7730 kHz beams to the west coast of North America, originally at 8 p.m. Eastern, is now at 7 p.m. Eastern. So it's now at 7 p.m. It's an hour earlier. The broadcast on 7490 kHz at 8 p.m. Eastern, as well as the corresponding tune-in stream, remains at 8 p.m. And the shortwave transmission on 9395 kHz at 8 p.m. remains at 8 p.m. as well. The transmission on 9455 kHz, I believe, will remain at 8 p.m. as well. Our transmission to Europe, 9400 kHz, originally at 12 o'clock noon Eastern every Sunday, is now going to be heard at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern every Sunday, remaining at 16 hours UTC. And also on Sunday afternoons, our transmission on 9395 kHz at 4 p.m. Eastern will remain at 4 p.m. Eastern. So remember, the big changes now. 5850, now at 5 a.m. Eastern. 11580, now at 3 p.m. Eastern. And 7730, now at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you listen to the broadcast at 8 p.m., right, that's the main broadcast, and I know, judging by the correspondence, that's what most people tune into. It remains with local time. It doesn't change with UTC. So if you turn on your radio at 8 p.m. Eastern, you'll still hear the broadcast on 7490, you'll still hear the broadcast on 9395, and you'll still hear the broadcast on 9455. But if you turn your radio to 7730 kHz, you're going to hear something completely different, and my show will have been on an hour before. So, that's where that stands. Now, you might wonder, and it makes perfect sense, why couldn't all of these broadcasts just be synced up at the same time like they were earlier? I mean, how important is UTC actually? You know, look at it this way, right? I get off of work based on local time, not UTC time. Why couldn't it just be synced up to local time instead of UTC time, considering the fact that it mostly targets the domestic United States? Well, that's a good question, but that's simply the decision and choice of the station management, and I respect that. I don't own any of the station